God bless you. It's great to connect with you again. The Lord is certainly good. Another day, another session, another period in our lives that we hopefully can make right, not only with God, but amongst ourselves. There is so much happening in our world, so much disagreement, so much hurt. There is so much pain. There is so many ills that men would love to address and to get rid of. But man is powerless. Man is totally powerless. Even those who wield great power and influence in what? In the offices in which they hold, or whatever that, or whatever the monies they may have. But yet still, they cannot solve all of man's ills and woes. And we are seeing this here in this very chapter. If you have read it at all 16 verses, we'll see that Solomon, the teacher, the preacher here, he's at pains to be able to address everything that he had seen in his lifetime. And he was a wise man. He was the man of great knowledge, of great understanding. He was king, for God's sake. He was king. He had great power. He had great wealth. But even then, still, he was powerless to address the situations and the circumstances that were before him. Now, we're just looking at one of six problems that we have already mentioned in our previous session. One of the six is the problem of oppression. The problem of oppression. And I really wonder if you have read the first three verses of chapter 4 of the book of Ecclesiastes. It's something that I believe that every man should read probably and think, contemplate for a while. Contemplate for a while. Let's read together. I'm going to be reading, if you don't mind. I will be looking all probably of the rest of Ecclesiastes from the Jewish text. I will interject with the King James Version because that's the version that many of us are used to. Certainly, I'm very much used to the King James Version. And I love the King James anyway. I don't really like the New King James, but I love the King James, the original Bible. Even though many are saying, well, it's not true and there are many mistakes, and King James, they're saying I was a homosexual. I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard that until quite late, and probably he was. But we have been using the King James for many a year. And I believe it is a trusted source. Even though there are other sources which have come along, it helps us to understand to some extent. But in all of our understanding, please let's not leave out the Lord because it is His word. It is His word. And I believe that if we include Him in all of our studies, in all of our readings, in all of our life's work, then I believe that the Lord will help us to understand His word, and we will be able to live the life that we ought to live because He is teaching us what His word is saying to us. He's the great teacher, really. God is the great preacher. Don't you hear him preaching? He's preaching right now, We've just got to be sensitive, seriously. I think we've got to be sensitive, very sensitive to God and what He is saying. Sometimes we are very sensitive amongst ourselves. You are sensitive to what I say. I'm sensitive to what you say. Sometimes we may even get offended by what others say of us or to us because we're sensitive. So why can't we then be sensitive to God? Because God is really speaking to us. You're not speaking to the person next door and leaving you out, or you're not speaking to the sister or the brother that you're not speaking to in the church there or in the fellowship. He's not only speaking to them, He's speaking to you too. He's speaking to me. So we need to be very sensitive, needing to hear, submitting ourselves to Him, to His word, and doing what He is bidding us to do. All right. So let's read the first three verses of chapter 4 of Ecclesiastes. And again, I'm going to be reading from the Jewish text. But I turned away and thought about all the kinds of oppression being done under the done on the earth. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. The power was on the side of their oppressors, and they had no one to comfort them. So I considered the dead happier because they were already dead than the living who must still live their lives. But happier than either of them is the one who has not yet been born, because he has not yet seen the evil thing that are done under. Now just take a break. As many vloggers would say, take a break, take a think here. Think about what the teacher, the preacher, the king here is saying. Remember, he's the one that has studied, he's the one that has researched life. He has researched about the animals, the birds, the bees, the flowers, the trees, everything. He's also very wise because God has given him knowledge. So both together. And he's a very wise, very well-rounded individual. This is what he says here about the oppressed, about him considering about the dead is happier. So I considered the dead happier. That's what he's saying, because they were already dead than the living who must still live their lives, but happier than either of them is the one who has not yet been born. It's quite humorous, isn't it, to consider all the avenues and the things here which the teacher, the preacher, uh, has seen. But let me just touch on some things here. I don't really want to weary you. There will be a lot more information. There's a lot more going on in these three verses. Can't touch on every single point in depth. I'd really like for you to go further than what I'm doing, or what further than I will go. I'm not the best of all teachers. I'm not the best of all preachers. I'm not the best of all talkers. All right? I just want to just let that, just give that out there. You may know somebody who can really help you, really open the word, really look at what Solomon is saying, and really explain to you with more clarity of what is being communicated. So I want you to move in that direction. Someone who you trust. Yeah, there are many out there who have got the gift of the gap, but they're not trustworthy. They don't have any character, and that's what really needed in Christendom. As far as preaching is concerned, as far as teaching is concerned, and godly leadership, we need people of character. We do, and I'm yearning. I want to be a person of character. I really want to be, not just to say it, but I want to be. I want, when the Lord looks at me, he sees an individual that is truthful, is truthfully, with all the mishaps and the fall down and whatever, who hasn't people of correct. Now, let's go back to this problem of oppression. Solomon, his kingdom served, and he was troubled with what was happening around him. He was very much troubled at what he saw. And Solomon examined the circumstances under which people in his day lived, and he witnessed things that alarmed and even disturbed him. People were hurting, just like people are hurting today. They were suffering under the weight of oppression, just like many of us, many of those who are living around us in our cities, in our streets. we view on the television, whether it be through YouTube or through all of the social media websites that are out there, we are informed of hurting people. We're informed of people who are suffering under the weight of oppression. And life on earth, life under the sun, is certainly, as far as we're concerned, full of oppression, abuse, injustice, inequality. All of this is taking place before us as it was before him. He could do nothing about it. As I said, remember, Solomon was a wise man. Solomon was king. Solomon was the richest of all, and probably if we could have, a figure of how much he was worth in his day, I don't think Elon Musk could touch him. I don't think so. However, we just don't have details. We don't have the data, do we? But let us say, bring in Solomon's wealth and his status in the days that he lived, bring it into our reality, in our day and time. Probably he would still be, as some would say, filthy rich. He was a billionaire. Probably he would be a billionaire. Okay. But yet still, with all the immense power and wealth that he had, he could not help people. He could do nothing about it. So sad conditions add another level of frustration and despair to Solomon. And the cruel intimidation which inflicted by those who had power was not unique to Solomon's day, but because of his pursuit of knowledge, he naturally witnessed the oppression in several areas. And there are 5 areas that are noted here. And it's taken again, if you have a commentary, which I have, and I'm sure you do, very well known commentary, the Matthew Henry commentary. You can look in that and you will see that it lists 5 things or 5 areas that Solomon knows where the oppression was coming from. So they trapped by the necessity of earning wages. They were taken advantage of by their masters. Number 2, debtors were harassed by cruel and merciless creditors. 3, tenants were oppressed by hard, unreasonable landlords. 4, orphans abused by brutal, unloving guardians. And number 5, subjects were exploited by the tyranny of princes and unjust judges. And we can see that, and we know of that today, even in our own society. Whichever society you're in, there's always a degree of oppression within the realm of where you live in the different strata of society there. Right. So oppression was going for king then. He couldn't do anything about it. He could do nothing. Solomon, obviously, in all of his deliberations here, we can see, and we get a sense of him having a soft heart. He was of a kindly nature, and I'm sure you realize that in relation to the book that we did in the Song of Solomon, the Song of Songs, in relation to his wife. I'm quite certain that you understood that and you understand that. But Solomon had a soft heart. He was compassionate. He had this, and if you want to read chapter and you read about the things in which he was concerned about. We just name 3 areas here in which he was concerned. The oppressed wept openly due to their horrible mistreatment. One. Two, the oppressed were helpless against the power of the oppressors. And three, the oppressed had no advocate, no one to console or comfort them. And he noticed these. That's why he's making, that is why he is making mention of them, at least in verse 1 of chapter 4. Between verses 2 and 3 now, we find here where gross injustice and pain suffered by the oppressed. The injustice of pain were often worse than death, and two, the injustice of pain can be torturous, so bad that a person could wish he had never been born to witness such evil. And we see that in what he has written here. Haven't you known individuals who have said they wish they were never born? You know, those who are dead. What do you say about those who were dead? Um, he says here, I considered the dead happier. Why? Because they were already dead. They had already passed through. Those who were not subject anymore to the oppression, to the oppressed, they were free from it. Yeah, free from the dead. The living must still live their lives. So those of us who are alive today, we express or we are experiencing the pressures of life. We are experiencing the harsh oppression of the oppressor. If you understand what I'm saying, and he goes on to say, uh, of those who have not yet been born, because he has not yet seen the evil thing that had done on them. That is why it is said, and I believe it was even the wise man who said that we must pray for those who have died and cry for those who are not born. So we have it the other way around. We say that, or what we do is that we're happy for the born, and we cry for those who have left us. But some may say that we must think different. So after considering the pitiful condition of the oppressed, the preacher here, who is Solomon, he made two extreme, shocking declarations regarding the severity of the oppressed. One, the injustice and the pain the oppressed were forced to endure was often worse than death itself. That's the first one. And the second observation that he made was that the injustice and the pain that the oppressed endured could be torturous, so bad that a person could wish he had never been born to witness such evil. And that is, as I mentioned before, that that has really been expressed by many people. You may have heard that. You could be also an individual who probably has even said something like this, going through a particular situation, circumstance that was so bad as what you were experiencing, you wish that you were not around to experience that. And many, the world over, even if you did not express anything like that, there are many in our world who at this very moment in time could very much well be saying just that. These are the situations that Solomon had experienced. This is what he saw in his day. This is what he saw in his time. So clearly, Solomon was greatly affected by the oppression of his day. And I believe we also ought to be affected by the oppression that we see even in our day. And we know that it's because of sin, it's because of disobedience, it's because of what man did in the garden. And so, because he saw um, and he experienced the oppression of his day, it robbed him of happiness. How can we ever be happy? By seeing someone around us, close to us, or from a distance, feeling and being oppressed, feeling oppressed and being oppressed. How can anyone be so quote unquote probably crass? It would be crass. It would be inhuman of an individual to be happy to see another human being oppressed. Yet there are many. One is too many. There should be any who is happy to see another human being oppressed. But here, Solomon is basically said, and he is communicating to those who are listening to him and to us that it robbed him of happiness. It was a factor that undoubtedly contributed to his hatred of life under the sun. And I mean, if you want to, fast forward all the way down to um, verse 17, just as a case in point, in that he says here, watch your step when you go to the house of God. Offering to listen is better than food. Or let me look at, let me read from, there is no end, sorry, verse 16. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Verse 16. Let me read verse 16 from the Jewish text. And that no limit was set for the number of his subjects. Nevertheless, those who come afterwards will not regard him highly. This too is certainly pointless and feeding on wind. Again, the Jewish text uses that. Instead of saying what the King James says, vexation of spirit, vanity and vexation of spirit, the Jewish text says that it is certainly pointless and feeding on wind. Pointless. It brings no value. It adds no value. Oppression and being oppressed. Being oppressed, being the oppressor, it gives and it contributes no value either to the one or the other. It doesn't. We all, the teacher tells us that we all go back to the dust. The oppressor goes back to the dust, and the oppressed goes back to the same dust. And our spirits go back into back into the heavens or to God. And as the animals, they go to the dust and they go downward. We end up just like the animals, in that we return to the dust. It is feeding on wind. Let's not seek to oppress others. Let's not seek either to be oppressed, but in our sins we are oppressed. But I believe, my friends, if we give our hearts, we subject ourselves to God, we humble ourselves to His Word, we seek to treat others, not seeking to oppress others, but we seek to love and to treat others kindly. Have a heart, have a soft heart. It would seem like Solomon, and I believe all will go well. God bless you. Love you. Continue to read His Word. Our next session will be looking at the problem of envy and rivalry. God bless you.